Hi, I'm Dawn Marie Solis with Neuro Awesome Life, and I'm really excited to be once again talking with Dr. Kimberly Douglass. I've been hearing wonderful things about work that she's doing, helping people turn their ideas and their presentations and all of that stuff into actual viable courses. And in order to share that, we're going to experiment with some of my stuff and see what we can do because this is something that I've been trying to do. I've been trying to take some of the things that I do live and in person or virtually in person and turn them into courses that are accessible on people's own timeline. And so, Dr. Douglas, I'd love it if you'd introduce yourself and give this a bit more context than I just did, please.
Okay, thank you. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me again. I am Dr. Kimberly Douglass, and I'm with the Douglass Consulting Group. And the website for the Douglass Consulting Group is douglasconsultinggroup.com. And Douglass has two S's in it. So I am a 2S Douglass. And I'm excited to be here to talk about the work that we're doing in the Douglass Consulting Group. And it is about supporting mental health. I want to say that again. We believe that there should be a clear educational system around mental health care. In our work, we are supporting mental health care providers, mental health care provider adjacent. So that includes counselors and therapists and doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists. It also includes coaches, reputable coaches. In this education system, we want to make sure that the information that you have, the knowledge that you have, isn't just sitting somewhere, that it's organized and categorized and structured in a way that the people you intend to talk to actually have access to that information and that knowledge, because knowledge becomes more valuable as it moves. So there are three things we look at the Douglass Consulting Group to assist people with developing their courses. We look at research, where we work with through research, which includes market research for your courses, because a lot of us have really good ideas, but if we haven't been out in the business world, it may be difficult or a little bit challenging for us to really think about what the market actually wants and how that's different from what we think the market actually needs. So there's research, there's review, and there's rigor. And I'll go back through the other two. So research, review, and rigor. So the research starts with understanding who your learner is, who your client is for this course. The review part of it is about looking at a course that you already have or materials you already have and doing what we call user experience testing. When people come to your site, they look at your course. Is it easy for them to navigate? Is it easy for them to make their way through the content? Have you curated the content that works for them? So that's the review part. And that could include site reviews, site audits, things like that. And then the rigor part is introducing mental health providers to this idea and the practice of getting their courses, their webinars, their workshops accredited by a reputable agency. And so today we're going to talk probably more so about the research part of it. And rigor is always part of the conversation. But I know our starting place is going to be today talking maybe probably a little bit about the research. So, and we're building this educational system one practice, one provider at a time by providing services, by providing guidance to show people how to connect with the learners that they intend to connect with. And so there are two ways that we approach this. We work with people who have existing courses, and maybe they have a course that they created 3 years ago and it's sitting on Coursera or sitting on Udemy or sitting on Kajabi or Teachable, and it's not doing anything. When they created the course, they imagined that they could have this contact, they could have this community around the course. They could use their business intelligence to really create a valuable conversation, and it's just sitting there. So what we would do in that case is we would deconstruct to reconstruct, and we would talk about some of the things that are getting in the way. And it may be that you need to do some market research, or you need to include things like design thinking, which you and I talk a lot about, or it could be the platform, or it could be that they thought this group of people were their clients, but they're actually not. So it could be in a number of things. So that's one group. The second group, which applies to what we're going to talk about today, is providers like yourself who have content in so many different places, but you know that you should be able to pull this all together in a single cohesive course that because what you want to do is curate all the things that you have put in different places and bring people into a single conversation. And with that, I'm going to go back to you and just ask you to explain for me so I understand clearly and I can help deconstruct what it is you have and what it is you would like to do with the materials you have.
Thank you. I loved all of your explanation. Um, so the specific class that I have bits and pieces to, developed out of getting asked to do corporate trainings about neurodivergence, most specifically autism and ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Neurodiversity and neurodivergence are terms that are just gigantic umbrellas. They encapsulate uh, not only things we're born with through genetics, uh, but things that we acquire through life because of trauma, experience, things like that. So it can include not only autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, Tourette's, but also mental health conditions such as bipolar, borderline personality, and more. My focus for the neurodiversity training that I developed was because of what I was asked for. And
Mm-hmm.
also because I've learned when you have terms that mean a multitude of things, focus can become extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an expert on all of the things that come under the umbrella of neurodiversity or neurodivergence. Um, so I feel very compelled to stay within my knowledge base
Mm-hmm.
and not try to act like I know things that I don't know. Um, so I started developing this with, I'm going to share my screen. Give me
Okay.
one second. Zoom is being really finicky. Okay, it says I shared my screen, but I don't think you can see it. Can you?
I don't see it yet.
Okay.
Well, while we wait on that, it just so, okay, there we go. I guess we're good.
So close that. All right. So now you should be able to see neurodiversity training questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed this in Google, and this got sent out to all of the employees that were going to be required to take the training. And it's really short.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I was looking for what people thought they knew
Mm-hmm.
and what people thought they wanted to know, so that I could design a training that would feel useful and engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also I could have a heads up on maybe some preconceived ideas that were either awesome or not so.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's a combination of, check boxes, yes and no, and the opportunity for longer written answers.
Okay. Okay.
So I did that first. So
Hmm.
it's a variety of market research, but my market was very specific.
Okay.
It was the corporations that were asking me to do trainings with
Okay.
with a public that was going to be required to attend.
Okay.
We don't normally get that out in the regular world. We
Right.
don't have,
Right.
unless we're part of a college course or something like that, we don't get that requirement. So my
Okay.
research is based on the idea that some people were going to be happy about this training and some people were going to be not happy about this training, and they were all going to be sitting there.
All right.
After that, I did a PowerPoint that has obvious breaks in it, so that if I only got to a certain point, I would make sure I at least got through the slides that were in that section, right? I
Okay.
could visually see, I gave myself really obvious visuals for where a new topic was coming, so that if I was running out of time, I could make sure I at least got through the topics within those sections. That's just something about me and the way I process information. Um, but yeah, so I had the PowerPoint, and my view on PowerPoints is that they are uh, if anybody's old enough to remember Cliff Notes, they're the
I
Cliff
do
Notes of
remember
what I'm
Cliff
going to
Notes.
say. So it gives everybody an upfront, oh, Don Marie's going to be talking about each of those things, but it's not an overwhelming amount of written information. It's enough so
Hmm.
you can follow along what I'm going to say and feel like we're both organized. So that's my perspective on PowerPoints.
Okay.
Only
So,
the information that can help people stay in the organization of your thoughts and connected to what's going on in the moment.
okay.
Um,
I have some questions for you related to the research and just making sure that I have full context of what it
let me go back to
is
that.
what you were developing here. Let me back up and say the reason why we're even here talking about this. Let me share some of my credentials here, which I did not do earlier. Most of my adult life, I worked in academia. So I was tenured at two universities. And at both of those universities, I worked on what they call accreditation efforts. And so when you accredit your academic program, you have to demonstrate to a professional organization. In this case, the organization was the American Libraries Association because I was tenured in information science. You have to demonstrate to them that your academic program has rigor and it's connected to learning outcomes, of pre-established learning outcomes. And so there's a whole slew of things you have to do to demonstrate that you have the right courses, to achieve those outcomes, and you're going about it a certain way that aligns with the way the American Library Association looks at education. So it included a site visit. So I was accreditation leader for one of those efforts and also a curriculum leader at University of Tennessee, where we went through and did. I was responsible for working on the course catalog. So my expertise is in accreditation and also graduate level education. And so a lot of the information that I share here will be informed by my experience doing that, but also a lot of my conversation about this is things that I learned later about design thinking, also about my experiences as an entrepreneur and trying to teach things that I learned in my business and taking business intelligence and turning it into education. So I just wanted to provide that context before I move on.
That's great. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a few questions for you. Um, so have you done this presentation already, or is it something you're going to
Oh, yeah, I've
do?
done this several times.
Okay, all right.
And I have a follow-up uh, questionnaire as well for people who have sat through the training.
Okay. And
I've done a
so,
number of versions of this as well as other trainings. This is just the one that I pulled up for today to focus on.
okay. So when you think about what you have been able to deliver here, what is the thing you'd like to see happen that's not happening with it?
I have to put in so upfront, I'm a neurodivergent person who's also disabled from a traumatic brain injury, long-term impacts from a traumatic brain injury. I now only have so much time each day where I have cooperation from my brain, and even that uh, it is challenging because of the brain injury. Um, the longer I talk, the more I start to stutter. The harder it is for me to think. It's a lot, right? So I can do these. I'm still presenting at conferences and all of that, but I have to conserve all of my energy to be able to do that. I have to be very, very careful of even talking to my family that lives with me in my home. Like I have to be really protective of my
Mhm.
energy output, how much I'm talking, all of that. So I would love to do as many of these live trainings as possible. But since the brain injury, those are hard to do,
Okay. Okay.
in part because it takes so much effort to find the companies that are interested in what I do, the companies and organizations. And right now is a very unique moment in United States history where what I have to offer is being spoken against
Yes.
by those in the highest seats of power in our country. Um, so I need to pivot. Uh, I know people still want this information,
Hmm.
even if it's just an individual who they got to, past 18 years of age and nobody told them they were autistic or ADHD or anything like that, but they suspect it. And they're looking for, well, how can you can take a ton of internet quizzes, but one, they're so often based on a deficits model. Um, and that's not what I'm doing. I'm looking at the neurodivergent community as people who have functioning brains.
Hmm.
I often use the example of a hammer. If I ask you to go get me a hammer, you need to ask me what I need it for, because there's an hammer for teeny tiny work, and there's a giant hydraulic jackhammer that hangs off of a giant tractor looking thing, right? You need to ask me what I need the hammer for, or you may not bring me the right hammer.
So there are two things that I hear in the conversation. So number one, there is capacity in improving capacity to deliver, which may be an issue about how it's delivered. So it may be like a self-paced or an automated kind of thing. So that's one issue that I hear.
Right. If I can get this into some kind of shape that an individual or a company could license from me, then I don't have to worry so much about, am I going to be okay enough on the day of to
Okay.
follow through.
And then the second thing, which was a question, I just want to make sure I'm clear about who your market is. Your market is companies and not individuals, right?
Uh, No, it depends on the class. This specific class could do both
Okay, it could do both.
because it's just an introduction to how does the brain function? Why do we have these terms of neurodiversity, neurodivergence? It's a very basic introduction to all of this that any individual could benefit from, whether they're sitting in a work seat or on their couch.
Okay. So if we're looking at it for the sake of efficiency and preserving resources,
Mhm.
Let's talk about it from you are doing what people would call a business to business model,
Mhm.
where you are selling things to a corporation or an agency, an organization, a nonprofit who you can do some licensing through and basically selling in bulk and charging them per use or something like that. So let's say that that's the arrangement because those are two separate arrangements, like the B2C, business to customer, and then business to business. But let's, for the sake of this conversation, focus on the business to business part of it. So if you are going to focus on the business to business part of it, or some part of this is going to focus on that, then the market research is different.
Mhm.
So then we have to look at which companies do you think you actually want to work with? And what are the questions you're going to ask them? So there are four things that we do in the Douglas Consulting Group to help us understand what the market is. So you can do some combination of data mining. So you can data mine from places like LinkedIn. You can see what people are asking for and maybe going in for a closer look to do some other type of measurement, and looking to see how companies are talking about certain things, if they're talking about neurodiversity at all, and looking at that in a systematic way to decide, wait a minute, that may actually be a good company to talk to. Another thing you could do is surveys, which, like you did here for the people who are actually enrolled in the program. And you could also do focus groups. You could also do one-to-one interviews with the organizations. If you are skeptical, or if it feels like the market is skeptical about this, the one-to-one interviews of CEOs, of directors, executive directors might be a good, more intimate,
Mhm.
personalized way to go so that you can really understand, get a good pulse on how people are thinking and how they're feeling about this. Yes, in the broader system, there's a lot of misdirection, misinformation, disinformation about neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and it's something that people may want to stay away from. But when you talk to people one to one, you may get a whole different vibe from them. And the
Mhm.
people you have to be talking to about this are the leaders of the organizations that you expect to purchase this. Let me step back for a moment. So with all of this, you always have to identify, and this is for everybody, a general message for everybody. You have to identify two things when you're talking about selling a course or selling other products and services. You have to look at the demographic. So making sure you're looking in the right direction. Is there a certain age group you're looking at? Do they have a certain occupation? Do they live in a certain part of the country? And in this case, we're talking about decision makers or purchasers who could purchase a licensed course. So making sure we're at least operating in the right space. The second part of this is the psychographic part, making sure that, what we're talking about here is values. What do you value? Do you value neurodiversity? Do you think it's an important part of your business thinking, like how business intelligence and how you're thinking about your business? Do you even know what it is? Does it matter to you? Does it matter to you that people have workplace accommodations? Does it matter to you that you understand the inner lives of your employees? So the thing is about getting to the right demographic and the right psychographic so that they can make a decision about purchasing your course. So now and just to make sure that there's no confusion, you survey people who you can survey, do focus group interviews. That is to help you connect with people who would actually purchase this. Then there's research that you do to develop the course, which is something you've already done. But the place where some of us get tangled up is, especially as neurodivergent people, or in particular autistic people who are pattern readers, it is really convenient for us, and I'm not saying this is your situation, just speaking in general, that a lot of us are pattern readers and we can see what the needs are out there because we've connected the dots. That's a different conversation from whether or not someone will actually purchase it.
You and I
So,
talked about this before we did this recording,
mm-hmm.
and I just want to jump in here. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I know better than to do that, and I do that.
Sure, sure.
I know better, right? I knew better than to just jump in and give people what I thought they needed.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
needed to find out what they needed, but also what they wanted, so I could
Right.
combine the two. But in so many places in my business life, I have had the field of dreams perspective of if you build it, they will come,
Yep. Yep.
and been totally devastated. Like, it's a really good thing. Why doesn't anybody want it? And
Right.
I've had to
Yes.
learn over and over again the hard way that I have to. And I'm thinking about when I still lived in Massachusetts, I created and opened a just marvelous uh, gallery and gift store. And I was supporting artists. I was doing all of these cool things, and I hadn't done the market research. I was in the wrong town on the wrong street, and I
Ah,
had no idea. I picked that town because they didn't have anything there like it. I'm like,
sure.
what? There's
Sure.
this wide open market, right? Well, they didn't have anything like it because they didn't want it.
But I think there's something important, really, there's of course something important in what you're saying, but something in particular I want to pick out of what
Yeah.
you said. Um, the value of market research isn't just to tell you whether or not there's a market. You could, you were obviously right that there is a market, but doing the market research helps you figure out what the messaging is,
Huh?
right street, right day, and helping you get drilled down in the details of it to understand. So for one of the things, like I like to do interviews with people and just let them talk, because what they will tell you is what language they use, what they care about, what they value. And what they do is they validate an idea that I have, but they tell me exactly where to place like where to place things and how to say things, how to articulate things. And it really is kind of tricky if you're a pattern reader because you can see these needs, but also where you do your market research and with whom, you have to be really careful because, like in this case, yes, you understand a lot about neurodiversity and what other people may want or need inside the training, but your client is the company. And you have to understand, and then I mean the collective you, have to understand what it is the company, the decision maker, and the purchaser at the company wants.
Hmm.
Of course, you're going to provide them like good information about neurodiversity. You're going to go in, do your research inside the company to figure out what they need and all that, to fine tune things. But the first thing is you have to understand what the company wants or doesn't want.
And so, in general, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm in the business of doing is helping the neurodivergent person who says, intellectually, I agree with you, and it makes my head explode.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I talk to person after person after person, and I know they have neurodivergent people on their staff. I know they have need of what I'm selling, and they're not interested. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's a certain type of resilience
Mm-hmm.
that neurodivergent people have if we've made it to any piece of life, right? We've already
Mm-hmm.
been through a lot of hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the reasons why we might intellectually understand, I've got to do the market research, I've got to do the interviews, I've got to listen, is that you're right. We see the pattern, we can understand the need. We just want people to get it.
Yes.
And a
Yes.
lot of us burn out.
Yes.
And I think this is where I'm going to be doing a lot of thinking. How do I help my sweet neurodivergent entrepreneurs not burn out before they even get to do the thing they want to do, right? Because listening to this already, before I can even do the thing I need to do, I'm looking at hours of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know some sweet entrepreneurs that are just going to be like, oh, no,
Right? Sure. Yeah.
I can,
No, this is not for me. This is too much.
right. And they're gonna run away. So part of my work is gonna be, how do I help people who burn out, people who need the dopamine rush, go through the things that are going to be hard and not necessarily filled with positive dopamine. And
Well,
if
a
you
couple
have any
couple
thoughts about that,
things.
I'd love to hear them, because since the brain injury, that's a little bit of my space too, right?
Sure,
I
sure.
only have so many productive hours, and now I have to put all of them into, I guess what I'm asking is, do you have thoughts about how people can stay engaged and encouraged? And my first thought is they hire you.
Yes, that's my first thought.
My first thought is they hire you and maybe me as a backup.
Yes, right. So I have some answers. I have some responses for you.
Okay, great.
Number one, because you want to know what you can do to help people. I think that's very, I know you outside of this conversation, and I know you want to help people. So I think one of the things that you can do is you can help people map out their operations and where they fit in their operations and what pieces they can do and what pieces they need for somebody else to do.
Brilliant.
And
Okay.
those pieces that they don't want to do, then they hire me, they hire you, they hire me and my staff, they hire you and your staff. Yes. But you have to help them be realistic, right? Because you're not doing them any favors by I totally get what you're saying, but we've entered this era where we have to move in a very different way. And I'm saying this to myself also.
Yeah.
I'm saying it for you, saying it for myself, saying it for everybody who's listening. We have to move in a very different way. We have to help people get really clear about where they are using their resources because there's a cost to this. If you're not clear from the beginning, a lot of people don't know what all is involved in this process of running a business and trying to identify your ideal client and your market. Like these are not steps that you can bypass. There's a cost to this, and either you're going to pay on the front end or you're going to pay on the back end. It is going to cost you one way or the other. So, on the front end, what you can help with, what I can help with, is sitting down and mapping out, like, here are the pieces. These are the things that you have to do. And if you can do these pieces, and something I talk about a lot when I host lives is capability versus capacity. A lot of neurodivergent entrepreneurs look at their capability, but do not look at their capacity. So they look and they realize that they are like if I wanted to, I could go out tomorrow and learn rocket science. I just could. Or if I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor tomorrow, I could go learn medicine and would not bat an eyelash. I am capable of doing that, but do I have the capacity to do it? No, I do not. So I am capable of getting things off the ground and getting an idea together, but I don't need to use my capability. This is not, it does not meet the need for the capacity that I need in my business. And what I have to do is I had to do was deconstruct everything to see like the pieces that I am setting up to succeed or to like I had to create a pathway to success. And the pathway to success cannot be built only on my capability. it's not just showing them all the pieces and parts, but also helping them identify. And actually, I think what I'm going to do is do a download on this, like something people can download about this. It's not just about your capability within the system of things that need to be done, but also your capacity to do it. And so that's where we have to think about sending them to you to help them with planning and organization, sending them to us to help them with the market research. You cannot bypass that. You can, but it means that your course is going to sit in Coursera or you did Udemy for 2 to 3 years. It won't go anywhere, and then you wonder why it's not selling. So, and here's the other thing, and I want to say this, and this will sound kind of blunt, but I need to make the point, is at some point you have to decide whether you are doing an expensive hobby or you're actually running a business, and the collective you, whether that's really important. And if you are running a business, you have to do this deconstruction, or you have to look at these pieces, like because if you're doing a hobby, you're doing it according to the connections that you're making in your brain. You're doing it according to the things that you think are really good ideas. So it could border on being like a special interest. And you're doing the things that matter to you and that you want the world to know about. So that is a special interest, that is a hobby. But if you're doing it as a business, it is client focused. It is learner focused. So if there's somebody you want to distribute information and knowledge to, what are their needs? But let me back up. Actually, if there's a person you want to sell a course to, so let's even stay away from the learner right now. If there's somebody you want to sell a course to, or a set of courses to, what are their needs? And those needs may be educational, but those needs may be something else. So, for example, in this case, you're selling to people who run organizations, be it nonprofit or governmental or foundation or a business. What are the needs of the people who are going to be making those purchasing decisions? Like that is a step that we cannot bypass.
I'm really excited about all the things you shared. Um, because I've been in business for myself for 30 years, it's all stuff that I know, but I deeply needed to be reminded of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that happens for me, because I do almost everything myself, is I forget the capability versus capacity piece. And I burn myself out over and over and over and over. In part because when you do things by yourself, you don't necessarily feel like you've got the cash on hand to hire somebody
Sure. Oh,
to do
absolutely.
the extra
Absolutely.
pieces. Um, but there's a bit of a conundrum there. If you're burning yourself out, you can't do your business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
3 weeks staring at the ceiling under the covers because you burnt yourself out
Yes.
because you're trying to do everything yourself. Your business isn't going to be successful. So there's that. But also, where do I fit in my business? Let's say I had a staff. I know neurodivergent entrepreneurs right this minute that would not place them in the CEO space themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They would be the worker.
Uh-huh.
And that's really valid. That's really,
Mm-hmm.
really valid. That means you need to find a CEO. You need to
Mm-hmm.
find a money person. You need to find people who can do the things that need to get done in a business.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's time to rethink what we're doing here because most of us, we have left struggle in industry, government, university, and entered into a different type of struggle. And we didn't know how not to do that
yeah,
because all the advice that we're giving, and this is why having a course, at least every business should have at least one course where you are teaching without you having to um, do anything else. It's running either for a client who has a business or it's running, based on people who are just signed up for your course. You should have something like that that just runs, that keeps that education going, even when you don't feel like going. But to your point, this is a great opportunity because what's happening in the broader world is that systems are being deliberately torn down. And we're watching this happen and not necessarily thinking about, well, wait a minute, like we talked about defund this and tear it all down, where it's being torn down. And so this is, there's going to be lots of havoc and lots of things, and I don't want to get too far into that. But from our end, we have to think about how to do things differently so that we don't recreate these dynamics. And I think it's very wise to take that picture and look at where you fit in all of this and what your, you can almost do it almost like an overlay. On one layer, this is what I'm capable of doing. These are the capabilities that I need from other people. And then another layer is what, by having all this capability, what kind of capacity does it give me? And the thing is, yes, it's really tricky as a person who's kind of working in isolation because you do have to have the money to hire people. You can do some bartering with people, some agreements with people, and some people just have to ride with you and just help you. And I found myself in the case where like I have assistants now in a way that I did not have it before, and it's changed everything. The whole outlook looks different. But before you start something, or if you're in the middle of something, I think it is worth your time, the collective your time, to pause and think about where you fit in everything. And so we're talking about this in the context of a course, but then how do you fit that course in this context? Because the whole thing is a course should increase your capacity. That's what should be happening. So we can talk about a course all day in education and who to survey, whatever, but it should be increasing your capacity at the end of the day.
I love that. And for me in my life, and I know a number of neurodivergent people who have co-occurring chronic illness, chronic pain,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, increasing capacity is like
Mm-hmm.
number one on our list of needs. Um, just given the time, I think probably maybe we stop here on this specific video. It's a lot to digest.
Okay.
If there would be one thing that you could say to somebody who maybe would be considering reaching out to you,
Mm-hmm.
and because you're talking to me and my whole world is the neurodivergent individual, and often the neurodivergent entrepreneur, because so many of us are trying to find ways to be self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
The temptation for me would be to see this little video and think I've gotten enough.
Sure.
And I'm going to go run away and I'm going to do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm struggling with my business, or I'm trying to get a business started, I obviously think I know some stuff.
Sure.
And I do know some stuff. How do you help people understand that even if you know everything Dr. Douglas is going to say, you know it? I just experienced it. I
Mm-hmm.
know all these things. And 45 minutes of talking to you, and I'm reminded, and I've expanded what I thought I knew. Uh, to me, even if you know, it's a good idea to talk to somebody else.
It
And you're
is
so
a good idea.
brilliant at this, and you have, decades of experience with this. So I said why I would come to you. What
Mm-hmm.
would you say?
I want to remind people of the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Ooh,
So you can know a thing, you can understand a lot about it, have it organized in your mind, have a clear picture of it. But the thing about doing it in isolation But even the knowledge you have, it's incomplete knowledge because you may be missing some context. And I mean, the collective you may be missing some context. Someone like me, my staff, we have the ability to deconstruct, reframe, and then reconstruct. And where the wisdom comes in that is providing you context about what you need to frame. And
Mm.
when you provide people with the frame, what that means is you get clear about what should be included or what should be done, and then what should be excluded and what should not be done. Because a lot of people have difficulty deciding what doesn't belong there.
Mm.
And so having that context and companionship, right? That's what we provide. We also provide the companionship. It makes you pause. This is actually your market. It's not these people over here or this good idea that you have. Let's stay focused on the market because I think that's the thing is people start with a good idea. They know these things, but they go off in a direction because they're following the idea. They're not following their market. So it's the companionship, it is the guidance that we are providing that helps keep things on course. So it's not just the knowledge, but it's also the wisdom. So it's the context, it is the redirection, it is the focus, it is the hand holding, it is the companionship, it is the empathy. It is the empathy of what you are experiencing because we've experienced the exact same things. It is somebody standing with their back against your back as you're trying to work through it and figure out these things. So the knowledge itself is not enough. You have to have access to wisdom in order to make this work, in order for it to for like we talked about earlier, just pause. Just like permission to pause. It's okay. Let's just stop and look at all the pieces. It may be that you took a coaching program and they didn't really explain all the pieces to you. Because when you go into a lot of these coaching programs, what they do is they give you a lot of sentimentality, which we don't necessarily, that's not how we operate. Autistic people, you get a lot of sentimentality, and inside this, it's like it's like you open a box, and the box has a lot of tissue paper in it, and it's like a huge box, and you go through the tissue, and inside that box is like this one nugget of information that or knowledge that you needed. We need for the box to be filled with the knowledge and information, and we decide how it connects. And so, coming to a group like ours, what we would do is we're not going to give you a bunch of tissue paper. We're going to help you see, and then this is also what you do as well. We're going to help you see what those like itemize, lay out those pieces so that you can see how all of there's so many unspoken, unstated things, like when you do coaching programs or when people tell you how to put a course together. And our thing is about telling you what all these pieces are so that you can decide which pieces matter to you and which pieces matter to your client. And part of that is identifying who your actual client is and not trying to follow like a coaching pattern that leads you off in a direction that you don't even intend to go, or a direction that makes you create a course and then it sits for 2 to 3 years.
That's awesome. Thank you. I
You're
love
welcome.
talking to you. I'm always
I love
happy
talking to you as
every
well.
time. So I'm going to make sure that there are links to the website that you mentioned.
Which is Douglas Consulting Group, and it is Douglas with two S's.com.
Okay.
And we'll provide links.
DouglasConsultingGroup.com. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
your wisdom.
I appreciate you sharing your platform with me.
Thank you so much.